Okay, so here we are in Colombo, Sri Lanka. It is October 10th, 2022, and this is a huge pleasure to be speaking with you. Do you want to introduce yourself, first and last name?
Yeah, my name is Mano, my first name, and my last name is Sekaram.
Sekaram, is that okay? And then the two institutions that you work with the most are 99X, which is the company you founded.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you want to describe for somebody who's not familiar with 99X what it does?
Yeah, we are a tech company, and what we do is we build products, software engineering products to the European market. That's what we do.
Primarily Europe.
Primarily.
But you'd be open to clientele in the United States?
Of course,
Okay.
as we grow. But today we have enough business coming out from Europe, so we
Okay.
don't need to.
And it seems like what you do is you take businesses from the idea of an ideation, an idea of what they want to create, to actual execution.
Exactly, right? We are there, how would you say, the delivery center for an entrepreneur or existing people. They want their products built, they come to us, right?
And you started
These are high-end, we predominantly cater for independent software vendors, which is people who build software for the mass market. So it's a niche part of.
So that's 99X.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people can look up online is that you work with the Foundry. Is that how you refer to it?
It's a foundry,
Yeah.
which we want to empower our own staff if they have completed 5 years of work and they have a good idea. And they can come to the foundry and we will fund them and take. So we also think that everyone has a dream. If you want to build, or you want to be an entrepreneur,
Right.
and you want to give it a try, we give you the platform. And there are some of the research what we do internally. We can transfer these off.
This is interesting that a lot of the people that are in the Foundry, are all of them internally recruited from 99X?
Someone puts a hand up and says, "Look, I have an idea, and I think, I want to give it a try." I said, "Okay, you can do this."
Fantastic.
And we will give equity, and we build this and help them within our network. So that also gives them that, 9 out of 10 startups will crash within the next 2 years. So you can return back to your employment if you wish. So it gives you, because I think what has happened in countries like Sri Lanka, developing country, risk aversion is a big issue.
Risk aversion, yep.
Right. So I think unless this is part of giving back to what you have done, is if we create the enabling ecosystem for people to fail, but fail fast. Understand this is for you. Right? And there are people who will succeed. We have some fantastic startups who are coming out of our foundry and they're not looked back. And some have been unfortunate that they couldn't meet it. So that's one. And then I was also part of an angel network in Sri Lanka. We're 100 of us. We constantly look for startups, knowing that we will burn a lot of our money. But it doesn't matter because it's a different class of asset.
Yes.
Once you understand that, and also it also reflects from your perspective, because when 20 years ago when I looked to raise money, I mean coming from Asia when the war was going on, it was the bank you had, so they wanted your house as collateral, right? That's the old way.
And you took that risk.
Of course I took that risk.
What made you embracing of risk?
I think for a lot of reasons. One, if you really look at opportunities, and as I said, the world was flat, right? You look at this. It's also about your passion, right? Because you want to live in a country, right? Of your birthplace, what you live, what you love.
Yeah.
And also you look at it and say, so how do I build a business which is global, but still be local?
Yes.
Right? And as I said, if you can earn in dollars, spend in rupees,
Yes.
and have that parity, it's a fantastic life.
Yep.
And if you can scale this and give it to thousands of people,
Yep.
you really build a different
A different society.
a different society. And that is possible because if you really, because I have traveled around the world, I mean, with all due respect to all communities, I mean, if you really take the history soon after the war, or soon after independence, Pakistan schools were filled with Sri Lankan teachers when the Nigerian oil boom happened, whether it was Sri Lankan doctors in Australia, etc. So I think we are a knowledge country.
Yes.
With the natural beauty which is surrounded us.
Yes.
So you need to also think as a citizen, how do, I mean, and I think I'm very proud because when I came back and we started this industry, we were only $50 million as export, the whole country.
Wow.
Today we are 1.2 billion.
Wow.
We make revenue higher than the tea industry. And it has taken the tea industry almost 150 years to make a 1.5 billion contribution to the national coffers. And we have just done it under 20 years.
With all the other sectors combined. So there's a few things that are worth repeating as background. One, we discovered that you were equally mission-driven as profit-driven.
Sure.
That the idea of starting your company and, as you say, earning in dollars or euro, spending in rupees, the idea was to expand that so that other people can enjoy that.
Especially your people, right?
Yeah, your own
because your own people. Because I mean, there are two things happen to you. One, when you do global, and especially when in the tech industry, right? I mean, just leave tech for a side, right? Look at architecture, right? You look at this. Just imagine a Sri Lankan architect designing something like this in let's say in Spain or something.
Yeah.
I mean, forget the money part, but look at him. He said, I designed a house in Spain.
Yeah. It's a matter of pride for him.
It's a pride.
Yeah.
People are, you think people are driven by money.
That's what some people say.
Right, but I think
But
if you follow your passion,
yeah,
the rest will come.
So here's a question. Do you follow your bliss? That's what some people say. Other people in these interviews have said, actually, the pain of others became my passion. I wanted to solve this problem. I wanted to create this solution for a problem that pained people. So is really a source of passion for you the realization that the alternative is painful to see? As you said, we cannot become wealthy and happy if we're just making jeans, garments, and tea.
No way.
Yeah, we can't. A nation of tea pickers will never.
Never. And you also have to understand. That's what I said. So globalization teaches you a lot of things.
Right.
And for global, because you have to look at our economy.
Yeah.
When you're 600 years gone through colonization, etc., the industries what we are in is not by choice.
Those tea plantations were not. You didn't have a choice.
Right. It's not by tourism. Yes. Right. But so we have to reimagine Sri Lanka, and we have to see within the world context what really. So for me, you have mastered tourism, but then I also can invite Adam to come and stay with me for 2 days, and that is experience. Right? And you see, I always believe when you come from a smaller country, I think that the margins are in the niches, right?
Interesting.
Right,
Okay.
margins are in the niches.
So the niches will be, you believe, technology?
You believe technology, boutique hotels.
Boutique hotels.
Very experienced. Not the experience, not bringing thousands of tourism.
Not mass tourism.
Yeah, but you need the mass tourism. But where you want to end up is an experience of tourism. And that is what Sri Lanka would have. And that, because why do you want to, because you want to constantly differentiate yourself, right? Right? Is it not coming and clicking, right? But so I think we have to remodel ourselves on the size because we have a limited. And what is that? Because if you really look, if I compare Singapore and Sri Lanka, I think an average tourist stays in Singapore 3.4 days. In Sri Lanka, it's 7.4.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting that these statistics. Okay.
Right. So I think the future of Sri Lanka is, of course, what is surrounded. Why people want to come, because it is to see a different culture. Right.
The natural beauty and the cultural legacy, which
and
we're not educated about.
Yeah.
We discover.
Yeah, and it must be cognitive tourism.
Yes.
You come and discover, and that is an experience.
Yes.
You have the masses, and because you can't have 10 million tourists coming to Sri Lanka.
You'd be overwhelmed.
right?
Although everybody's been telling me, bring your friends and family. That's what they're all saying these days.
I think we should be about 3 to 4 million, but yield per tourism is very important.
Can we make sure that we get down a few big quotes? I love the quote when I went straight for what everybody was telling me before I got here, which is, Adam, are you sure you want to go to Sri Lanka? It's a country in crisis. There's riots. There's a lack of fuel. You might be stuck there. And your response was, I feel safer in Sri Lanka than I would in Europe right now.
Of course. Yeah.
And that is because Europe is right now has a door, potentially a nuclear war on its doorstep. As you pointed out, the two world wars had their origins in European conflict. And Sri Lanka is not threatened by physical violence right now. It's basically, there were loans taken out. As you said that one of the contributing factors to the inability to pay loans was COVID-19, the pandemic hurt the tourism industry, loans could not be repaid. In other words, if I'm projecting next along what you might say, you would say that the financial crisis is temporary, loans will be made. Is that what you're thinking? That this is temporary and not that severe?
No, let's put it this way. Let's relate Sri Lanka to a company.
Okay.
Right? You can have a bunch of CEOs or the management would react. How do we take opportunity of globalization? And you might have A strategy, a B strategy, a C strategy. Let's say they picked A strategy over a period of 70 years, which means you're trying to build the country based back of building infrastructure. And remember, 30 years of war, right? Okay, you're trying to say, okay, I need to catch up, I need to take loans to build mine.
Right.
Rather than thinking and says, how do I generate income?
Yes.
Right? And how do I also, corruption is a part of it,
Right.
how do I have good governance
Yes.
in order to avoid that? So it's a combination of our economic policies, not being a very export resilient and still depending upon bottom of the pyramid.
Yes.
Right? Not innovating enough.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the tea industry. I mean, I think if we really put innovation in, we should be able to have hydroponics coming out of tea making, right? So unless you're able to think, because if you look at the tea plantation, that whole business model is based on semi-slave labor, right? Right.
That was
Unless you're able to transform these industries.
There's that, and the other thing is that this is not the natural environment. This is monoculture. And it can't be the best thing in terms of climate, soil usage. Is it the best use of land per hectare? Wouldn't it generate more value if it were tropical, returned to natural state, turned into, I don't know. It seems like this is...
So that's why you have to, when a country becomes independent, more than looking at how you, the thing is about democracy and your governance, you also have to deeply look into what is your economy.
Yes.
Right? Because if you look at the 5 top industries who are bringing revenue into the country, number one comes from our Middle Eastern unskilled labor who goes as housemaids.
And there's remittances that come back. Okay.
Number 2 comes from our garment industry. Right?
Levi's are made here, is that right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Then number 3 comes now with tourism.
Okay.
Right?
I'm waiting for T.
T.
T's number 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then IT, technology. If you look at the first 4, you don't need to go to school, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we are in labor arbitrage mode.
Yeah.
Right? There is no value addition. So unless you control Starbucks or you call it right.
Also, the investors historically have the capital hasn't come from here, and you're the first generation that is actually investing in the new generation.
And we are acquiring companies overseas, right?
Oh, really? Where do you mind disclosing? Where do you hunt for new companies to acquire?
No, because that's the part of globalization. You want to have access to market. So I think we really need to think. You have to. That is fundamentally because I think the nation has to think: how do we take a $4,000 per income capita to 12,000? Right. That should be your measure, right? And to do that, there is fundamental you have to change.
Yes.
If you look at seafarers, right? I mean, we are surrounded by sea.
Yep.
I mean, today we should have had, let's say, people working in the marine industry. You know, we should be captains of ships.
What is preventing that from happening?
I mean, it's again the economy, the way you want to approach it.
It also seems that examples, when you see an example of somebody doing something, it becomes possible to you.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration? Was it everybody? I'm going to assume, and sorry if this is a wrong assumption, if you went to Australia for your education,
Yeah.
you must have been already middle class. Your parents must have had some
Sure,
resources.
sure.
So is it possible these days for somebody that comes from a village that does not have middle class parents, are there now scholarships to be able to study abroad? Do you need to study abroad? Or is it possible to achieve the level of education that you achieved staying here or through other means?
I think it's a very good question. I think today, if you look, if you look at a lot of Sri Lankan entrepreneurs who have made it, have really come from the bottom of the pyramid in different industries.
Why does that happen? Why do the people that start out not upper class, not middle class, if we want to use those terms, but is it just being born with a hunger, a desire to?
Definitely, it's born with the hunger.
And that's what you look for when you invest in somebody.
Yeah,
Is do
sure.
they have hunger?
Hunger. Second thing is, in Sri Lanka, education is free.
Is it good?
It does not matter. I think you have structure.
Okay.
You have level of structure. Because education, you have to have structure of level of learning. Then it can come.
If you excel, are there systems for catching the talent in some remote village that is?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we look for guys who are
You
talented,
guys are hunting for that.
hunting for
Yeah.
So I think it's true. When you are born in a middle class, you have handicap. Definitely, right? Because you have access to network and etc.
Yeah, you have an advantage. Yeah.
Right? You have an advantage. You know, you have access.
And stories, a narrative that you can imagine stepping into.
Exactly.
Which-
And then you see the world differently because you can see, and then you can relate to things which is happening around the world.
Exactly.
Because I think it's more than which class you come from.
Okay.
It is the ability to see globe as one marketplace for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And see the difference, read history, understand, and then you see what is possible for you to, your inner passion.
Right.
Right? So for me, I always dreamt, I mean, it will be lovely to live in Sri Lanka. You know, it's like living in Sri Lanka with an American salary, right? I mean, you know, how do you do it? And right throughout this,
And share the benefits of
benefit.
Yeah.
I've seen these diplomats, and diplomat's wife going for coffee morning and blah 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 blah. You know, for them this is because they don't need to do their washing and
Yes.
and you can do, and you think, my God, and what is stopping you? It's the industry, right? And it has to be global,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that is the most important. That was my passion. I wanted to live in. I lived in Australia. I
Right.
moved back,
Right.
and I wanted to.
A few questions.
Sure.
So the stories in volume 1 of my book all had in common that there was at least the perception of maybe volatility from the outside, some kind of a lack of resources when people started. Would you say that that so far fits? Sri Lanka had, as you mentioned, 30 years of Civil War. And you came back in 1999.
2000 almost.
2000. Could you refresh, if somebody's not familiar with the history, was the conflict completely over then?
No.
So you came back when there's still a civil war going on. Did you have a huge amount of resources? Was it your own saved capital, or did you get investors?
No, it was little of my saved capital,
Okay.
but it was invested. But also you have to do, if you can predict the future in the present.
Yes.
That's what I did.
Were people skeptical when you said, look, we have people, as you point out, going back to colonial times, Sri Lankans were educated and proved themselves
Sure.
as perfectly able to do knowledge economy work.
Yeah.
The future is IT. In around 2000, when you said that, did people laugh at you? Did they say, are you crazy? I'm not going to invest in Sri Lanka. There's a civil war. You guys make jeans and tea. Is that what you were hearing?
Of course. They used to ask me when I used to travel with to see my customer.
Yeah.
They would say in the board meetings, they will ask, would you buy software from Afghanistan?
Okay.
Right.
And you said,
I said, look,
we're not Afghanistan. Is
no,
that what
no,
you said?
no, but because there was a conflict.
Right.
It's,
So what was your answer? It's a great question. How would you answer that?
I mean, I got to say, look, I mean, maybe probably that's the same question somebody asked your forefather, right? When you were going through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, my family's from Poland, and
Right.
we've had
Right.
conflict. We didn't
Right.
exist for 120
Right.
years, so why would you invest in a conflict zone?
And today it's so sad when you look at, I mean, I can take it only from you.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody expected Ukraine to have war and for you to have refugees, right?
Yeah, and nobody expected us to be the 21st largest economy the last time I checked. And if Russia gets kicked out of the G20, we're going to be a G20 member? On what planet? When did that happen?
I think you got to say it, right? You don't make those choices, right? It is what you do best. You have to contribute. And I'm so proud, for one thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think some of us, we're shaping the future of Sri Lanka, right? To tell to the younger guys, this is possible.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. The younger people have voted, apparently, in these rankings. And you are, it's all of Asia that 99X is like the top, the greatest place to work.
One of the greatest places.
All right, explain, what are you doing? Is this something that anybody could do, or is there something special about your personality and the people you've hired? Is this something that anybody could copy?
So
Could anybody achieve being number one?
Of course, they can.
So what's the secret sauce?
See, for you to be an entrepreneur,
Right.
For me,
Perfect.
right, four things.
Four things.
One is your business model.
Okay.
You live and die by your business model.
You live and die, that comes first.
First, number one is your business model.
You could have the greatest personality.
You can have the best
People-
research. You can do this. You can be innovation, but your business model
Yes.
is very important.
Will people buy what you're selling?
Yeah, right. And why do startups fail? Because they don't have a viable business model.
You don't have something that people will pay to use.
Repeated,
Right.
repeated.
Yeah,
right?
repeated
so
revenue.
So for me, every morning I get up, I think through my business model at least for during the whole 8 hours.
Every morning.
Every morning I think through for about half an hour. And then before I go to sleep, I think through my business model. I sketch and it's working. All the
I'm tempted to ask a impudent question. Is your wife okay with this? That's the first and last thing that you think about. Okay, but let's step away from that.
So your business model.
But this is really fascinating because you've already started a company 22 years ago.
But you have to keep innovating.
You think about this every morning and every night.
morning, and you say because there are changes.
Do you actually see things that you didn't see yesterday?
Yeah, of course I see.
Every day?
Yeah, because there's great resignation, things are happening. You know, so say in our marketplace, new technology is coming out. So how do you, right? Your pricing, blah blah blah.
This is already priceless. What you're saying. Nobody's ever said this. That they wake up and go to sleep thinking about business model, even after their company is no longer a startup.
Yeah, sure.
How much? Because how many companies are you involved with between the Foundry and other mentoring?
About 10.
Do you think about their business models every day as well?
No.
No. You focus on yours first.
Right.
Okay. Save yourself first.
Yeah. So you think through the business model and then say, and that is why I'm able to contribute very well. And I sit on boards, I sit on voluntarily on boards.
Because it's your own practice.
Right? Because then I ask, because I know this company is not going anywhere because they don't have the business model. So,
Four big things.
Yeah.
First,
so one is your business model.
Yeah.
And part of my business model is every year I have to increase my price by 5%. Every year. Right? You can do a chapter with me later, but it's too difficult to go through. So I have to increase my price every year in dollar terms by 5%. Right? Which means I'm going up the value chain.
Just to make sure the microphone hears. If somebody wonders, what are we hearing?
That's a school, and they're having their prayer time.
What time is it, by the way? I want to make sure to respect your time.
It's about 1:30, but I can just go for it.
Okay, and this could be a good moment. We will come back to the big four indispensable virtues of an entrepreneur. But as long as they're singing, and we might not have a clear recording of the conversation, this could be a good moment to pan the camera around and briefly summarize what you told me about architecture. Do you agree?
Okay, but I thought you recorded the architect.
I did, but I love to have it in one recording. This is the beautiful example of innovation in Sri Lanka when the socialist government between 1970 and 1977, is that right? restricted the importation of any building materials.
Everything what you say is local.
And so Jeffrey Bawa was the architect who took elements of
Sri Lankan.
indigenous Sri Lankan, and one of the indigenous elements would be allow for structures that don't have glass but allow a cross breeze.
Exactly.
So if you've noticed our hair or clothing moving, it's because there's a beautiful breeze flowing through the building. That open window behind me,
Cross ventilation.
cross ventilation. There's the element of
Wood.
what else? Wood, cement, very
and green.
That's right, the green courtyard. And it seems like the singing is over. By the way, from what tradition was that singing? Was that
It's Buddhism.
that was a Buddhist?
Yeah.
Is that common in all of the schools, or is that
That's a Buddhist school.
It's a Buddhist school.
It's normal.
private or
So,
public?
Public government.
Okay.
So let me.
Yeah. Now
go
we're back
through
to the four virtues of an
so,
entrepreneur.
so one of the things is I have to increase my price
5% every year.
So then I have to think through how do I do that and go up the value chain. Because as I told you, margins are in the niches, right?
Margins are in the niches.
Right? And our strategy is very simple: 1 inch wide and 1 mile low. That is how you specialize.
1 inch wide,
And
1 mile deep
long.
or
Deep.
long. Right.
And then you
Like
then
a trench.
right, and
Like a-
then you become. People will start because you
To recognize you as a leader in that area. If when people think of 99X, what do you when they hear that? What do you want them to think? Which niche? Is it the machine learning? Because I read that there's machine learning.
In our marketplace, we want them to be. This is a Hugo Boss or Armani.
Okay,
They have to be a boutique.
boutique.
That's,
From what I remember of the website, there were several areas that you can help a startup with a great idea develop a product. One of them involves machine learning, artificial intelligence when there's a ambiguity.
sure.
Correct.
But it's when you want to build a product, you bring all those elements: cloud, artificial intelligence. This. But then, say you want to build a product,
Right.
or you have an old product where you have to modernize it.
Okay.
You can go to so many, but you won't go to the best, but it'll cost you.
Okay.
That's.
And you want to be seen as the best.
I want to be seen the best,
Okay.
and you don't negotiate prices with people.
Hey, by the way, why Norway? Why does it appear that 2 of the lead officers are in Norway? Is that right?
You off the camera and I'll tell you.
Oh, maybe. Okay, we'll save that for off.
No. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
it's because Scandinavia, the whole of Scandinavia.
Has a reputation.
No, they 70% of their, how do I say, 70% of their companies
Yeah.
have less than 100 people in the tech. It's an SME, so it's an ideal fit for us,
Okay.
right? So we can.
Why does that matter though? What?
Because you have CO2 CEO contact. You know when you sell business. No, I'm not selling to Boeing. So I want to know. I want all my customers to know my first name.
So your niche is that part of your niche strategy? Is to focus on companies where there's a person-to-person relationship. You're
No.
not dealing with You're not dealing with Google or Boeing.
Exactly. And we want to be the most valued partner in their development chain. So then I control
That
the
allows
delivery.
some price
Yeah.
inelasticity.
Yeah,
Is that-
don't
right?
say it. But
We shouldn't advertise that.
right.
Okay.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that's.
But
that's
it doesn't seem like that awful a secret. It just seems like a smart
sure,
strategy.
it's a smart strategy.
There's nothing illegal. There's nothing unethical.
No.
You just want to be valued, and you know you'll be valued by a small to medium-sized enterprise more than a large one.
Exactly.
Brilliant. What about growth? How much does it
So-
matter? Does
so-
it matter revenue growth or client growth? Which matters more to you?
What matters is EBITDA.
EBITDA, and you mentioned top line growth of 5%. Are you worried with
No, top line growth of 20%.
top line of 20%?
Yeah, you need to
Profit 5%.
have- every year you need to increase your profit. Why?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, this
Yeah.
to invest in the future.
No,
So, no.
because then I can pay my guys every year
Okay.
and bring them up to this $5,000,
Okay.
$2,000.
Okay. So it's a part of the mission. Again, it's not just making money. It's to allow for extra wealth to spread to the people that you're
Exactly.
employing. It's
So
a part-
because if you go up the value chain,
Yeah.
this is for example, right? You come to Sri Lanka and it says I only want to have nursing. I'm just as related back nursing. I'm happy with nursing.
Yeah.
How do I get you to go up the value chain and seek medical doctors? So it's just like the Japanese motor car industry. Initially they started by selling parts, then they made the whole machine.
Right.
So you have to specialize and go towards up the value chain. You get it?
Okay.
So
Okay.
part of our
So you see, in another generation, there could be
top guys and see what happens to the company. We are stressed because we have to deliver 5% more value.
Is the financial crisis hurting you, or are you more insulated?
No, I think financial crisis doesn't hurt us. There is a massive shortage for good tech companies.
Yes.
Right? The only thing that hurts us is the perception of our people that Sri Lanka is not safe.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Of course, it's only by education. Right? Because if you escape anywhere else, I mean,
Right.
I think, I'll miss my point, but I think it is, you have to take a holistic view.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
For me, this is recoveries between 24 to 30 months.
24 to 30 months.
Sri Lanka will come back.
And so does that mean
This is a reset because
Yeah.
we needed this reset.
we needed it? Okay.
It's a reset because the demonstrations, what has happened, the Aragalia, all has put Sri Lanka in perspective.
Okay.
Politicians are much more accountable now.
They know that the people will be in the streets.
And they can throw you out.
Okay.
Right? So I think it's a
So this is a healthy, good test.
It's a fantastic thing. For me, it's a reset. I don't want to get into politics,
Yeah.
but from an economic perspective,
Yeah.
it's a fantastic reset. Why do we need to spend? I'll give you an example. We import 1.5 billion automobiles into this country.
What?
1.5 billion.
In dollars.
In dollars.
Yeah, okay.
In billion.
Yeah.
And that is equivalent to our export of tea industry.
That's crazy.
You see,
Yeah.
as I said, Adam, if you dive into this is an easy thing to solve, right? We cannot consume. We can't be a consumption economy. We must be a production economy. We can't travel by. We need to have better public transports. So it's a reset. Our fuel bill from $600 million have dropped to 200 million. And I'm still traveling, you're traveling. Why? Because we had 3 cars, because we were trying to consume, we were going to buy our bread this, it's all
So
about...
This forced some frugality that is not
Exactly.
that painful, you're saying?
You see, every revolution, every reset, you have to have a course.
Okay.
Right? And then that is... So coming back to the 4
Yes.
things.
Yeah, there's a
get
few
that.
things that we need to
I
rapid
don't want to
fire.
be- right? The 4 things. What's that? Second,
Business model.
you need to build the best place for you to work.
And how, that's something else I
Right.
wanted to come back to. How did you do that? Very quickly.
Very simply, one thing you have to understand is you must have the guy who is better than you. That's your biggest challenge. You must hire guys.
How do you find and screen and keep the
No.
people that are smarter than you?
Yeah. First, you must hire guys who are smarter than you.
How do you
And
find them?
Of course, you look around, you scout around, right? You need to hire guys smarter than you.
Okay.
And for you to hire guys smarter than you, they have to get attracted. And you must be, otherwise what will happen is you will all have yes men,
Yes.
right? And they're not challenging you, right? You need guys who will come and challenge.
Do you make that part of your daily practice as
Of
well?
course.
Asking people, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, for us, we have one practice. You can challenge everything in the company. You can say, Mano, I don't like the color of the wall, that's white. There's a difference between criticism
Yes.
and constructive. Why?
Yeah.
Because I have done scientific evaluation.
Yeah.
If you use white, A, you spend more money for the surface. B, it's bad for your eyes. These are the facts. And you present.
Do you also require that they come up with a solution when they complain?
Of course, they complain. So if you don't challenge, so I think it is a question of you need to challenge everything what you do.
Okay.
Right? That is vitally important.
So human resource, yeah.
So when you have smart guys, they don't want to be conform, right? They want to challenge everything, right?
And they want to feel significant that they have
Exactly.
agency.
And 2, it has to be a flat structure, right? They want to be CEOs. They want to think. So for you, so we consciously, I said, you have to think like a CEO, because it is. If you start enabling them and saying, leaders without title, you don't need a title,
Leadership
right?
titles.
And then if you build an army of guys who can think like you,
Yes.
and they are much more smarter than you, I mean, it does wonderful. I mean, our customers are mesmerized when we put these guys. They will say, "Hey, Adam, I think the software what you have is a bloody piece of shit, right?
Okay.
You must be able to boldly say that." And I say for this. So unless he says, "No, I don't think I agree with you, this type of technical solution," I mean, they go red because they can't. They must be thinking, "Oh, guys living in Sri Lanka in a hut somewhere, right?" So and that is what they want to see, because the customer wants you to challenge them and say there is a better way of doing it.
Interesting. The client actually appreciates it when you push back.
And then he comes up with different innovative idea.
Right.
I mean, he's a true partner.
Right.
Not sitting behind the and then saying, "Okay."
This is fascinating. That in the knowledge economy, a client appreciates it.
Appreciates how you challenge and the way you think, bring new perspective.
Pushback is valued. It's not to be.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Okay, so
So
far.
it's just like a doctor. I mean, always don't look at it from an IT perspective. You go to a doctor.
It's generalizable. Yeah, teachers as well. I tell my students.
And then an architect, and you come and say, "No, I want to build something like this," and the architect says, "Just imagine an architect says it's a very bad idea, right?"
You appreciate the pushback, but you want to know why and what's the better
and
idea.
he will explain and say, "This is because."
As long as they can explain the
Right.
reason.
So that's the second thing.
Yeah.
Third, it's all about ideas are cheap, execution is everything. So execution.
Which requires a different skill set sometimes to the person with the ideas, right? It requires the person who grinds every day, is obsessed about the details,
Exactly.
and accepts no excuses if anything is less than perfect.
You have to have your execution engine must be like running a military. Everything works, right?
So you want both accountability, independence, autonomy, and the initiative to criticize and point out what's wrong, but also incredible. There's like a dichotomy here of both the artist's personality and the person who executes, who every day grinds. And
everything you have to do that. Finally, you have to deliver. So we have systems and processes to do this, but without being, what's the word I'm looking for, intimidating.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah,
because Boston has a lot of startups, and I hear about these people that are really trying to do the best that they can, and sometimes there's pushback from these.
Just ask you a question, right? Now, I know every programmer in my company will make a bug in 8 hours.
Within 8 hours, they'll make some mistake.
Somebody. What does it mean? How do you tell these guys? Because that means when we do an estimation of 1,000 hours, I know how much of rework.
Wow.
So your pricing, you see, you have to educate. That's why you need to think like a CEO. Why do I have that perspective? All humans make.
Yes.
We have to factor this.
So you have to tell them that this is the amount of errors you will make.
Yeah.
And please catch them.
No, more than that, I think the guys who make more errors are the guys who are pushing the boundaries. So don't take me wrong.
Okay.
Right? Who is trying out different things. Hey, it's not the bad guy. Bad guy will have few mistakes.
This is interesting.
Right?
So you actually want them to create errors as long as they catch them and fix them.
Yeah, and that'll be caught by the QA.
Okay.
Etc. But what I'm trying to tell you is, unless you ask me, how do you do systems and processes without people?
Without being seen as a bad guy.
Bad guy.
How can you be seen as the best boss?
Yeah, but so that you got to understand the CEO mindset. And then you have to, that's why, if you really look, you have to have two mindsets. One is a CEO, which is very execution. Then you need to have an innovative mindset. Right? That's why if you really look at startups, 50% of the CEOs founders don't become CEOs after 3 years. Right?
They're the visionaries, but not the executioners.
So you need to have execution engine and the innovation.
Right.
And the finally is constant. You've got to challenge to bring disruptive innovation.
And that's why you have to wake up
So
and
the
go to sleep thinking.
best example for me, and it stays in my heart. I think it is Ryanair, right? I think I picked this. All what I'm saying is picked up in the universe, right? I'm not a genius, right? That's how it happens, right? So I picked up this from Ryanair very early in my life. How do you challenge? The best example for challenge.
Yes.
Ryanair everything they do, they challenge. The CEO says, he challenge. So one day they challenge, do we have to serve water in our airplanes?
Yeah.
So they all said, well, of course we know IATA regulations. What are you talking? 35,000 feet, 3-hour flight, you have to dehydration. But they said, but where does it say we have to give it free? We have to say,
Yeah.
so they did a what if. What if we say you're going to buy?
Yeah.
What is the correlation? 50% won't have water. If 50% they will bring their water, what will happen? They don't go to toilets, so we can remove 2 toilets and put 2 more seats.
Oh, wow.
Can you just imagine? This is the power of challenging everything we do.
Challenge the assumptions.
Challenge.
So that's point 4. To recap, there is the business model. You
Very
live and die by that. Nothing matters more. 2 is going to be the human resources element.
You must be the best place to work.
The best place to work.
And they have to, everyone must feel that they own the company. And right, because to do the right thing is when someone else is not watching you. If you get this in, and for that you need to have absolute leadership credibility. Nobody will do that, Adam, if you don't have leadership.
And you establish that by example.
Exactly.
Them seeing how you
Live and die by my example. You can talk to, because the 200 questions goes to all our employees, and we score in terms of leadership credibility. They will say to trust. We will never let them know. This is our future. This is the way we go, and we look after our staff.
Point number 3 is execution.
Execution.
And the incredible dichotomy that if we had another hour, I would sit down and or I'd love to watch you for a week and see how do you balance. How is it possible that people love you even as you enforce meticulous execution? That would be fascinating to watch. But it seems like you can't summarize it. But you have processes.
Yeah, but you see, end of the day, it's this, right?
Yeah.
I don't take prisoners, right?
Presidents, I'm sorry.
I don't take prisoners.
Oh.
If you fail, right? But you got to understand. You have to.
But it seems like you ask, why did you fail? Were you pushing the boundaries?
Exactly.
Forgivable.
So it's not about, you need to have the best.
Yeah.
See, if you hire for attitude and train for the skill, I think it is the best.
That's come up in other stories.
Yeah.
That I look for the underlying skills and the human skills of somebody, and then you can train the other
If he
hard
has
skills.
the attitude, you can always train.
Yeah.
But I think what is most important is, for me, it's all about experience. Because when I work, all bosses are assholes, right? Let's be honest.
Right.
All bosses are assholes. And one thing I didn't want to do in my life, I didn't want any of my staff talking behind my back.
Yeah.
So and they said, so if when you create a culture that you don't get reprimanded for challenging or saying things, if you build it, so you can say, Mano, you're an asshole, or I don't agree with you. And that is fantastic because you build trust.
Right.
Right? And then you have to adjust, and you as a person adjust, because you're not look, I'm only I always tell, I'm only responsible for 2 things: top line and bottom line. What happens in between, we empower guys. If you have that,
Do you share with them? There's something that some founders talked about, which is open book accounting. That you share a little bit about the financial model.
Yeah, I think
Just pause for.
They really understand this.
And by the way, to recap, the 4th element was to be constantly disrupting yourself.
Yeah, you
Or questioning.
Yeah,
Questioning the
you
fundamentals.
constantly you have to disrupt yourself. You got to challenge yourself. You have to have this innovation part. So I take all these experience when I look at a startup.
Yep.
Right? I take it very slowly, and you have to be very careful because I'm on the other side, right? I'm the guy who's asking all the dirty questions, right? Or
Trying to find the weaknesses.
right? And I try to this, so they come up to me. To be honest, I think I spend now more time people calling and say, "Can I have a mentoring session with you?" Right? And for me, that is the greatest joy. It's not the money you make, because you're able to influence someone else's life and share that knowledge.
That's why teaching is
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Because
it's a great.
that is fantastic. So You see, if you look, you asked me about conflict, and this is what you need to tell when you meet Sri Lankan or any part of the world. If you look at Sri Lankan history, when I was 11 years old, we had a conflict. 71, there was an insurgency. Then we had the race riots. So constantly, it's, you have, and you start adapting and believing. I 100% believe Sri Lanka will become the nation what it is because of its people, not because of its politicians. These are good reset. It's absolutely a fantastic reset.
It'll bring accountability, as you say.
Right. And the young generation, it will not take the shit when we were young. Because they have the social media, they want accountability, right? And why did you see all this protest? It's because it was driven by the younger generation.
This is, I should cut this very short, but very quickly, when I was in Poland, people were writing to me and saying, oh my God, there's civil unrest, you need to be evacuated. And I looked down the street and I said, oh, you mean the protest? That's healthy. That's a healthy democracy. We should be probably in the streets more often.
I think
to bring accountability.
That is I think companies like 99X, the way we run our companies, where it's accountable, everything is clean, you look, and that is what I will always bet in Sri Lanka. There are pockets of very good people who have done extremely well. Who are very conscious. There are doctors who give their life for their patients.
Yes.
Very passionate people, very compassionate. I think we have the ingredient. It is now, we need a force to bring all this together. And this has happened, and it is, in a way, for me, this is Sri Lanka's reset.
It's the reset time. That could be the headline.
Yeah,
this is a needed reset.
We need a reset because I think would you agree, right? I mean, you're a teacher. If you look at all conflicts, it stems out of economics. Right? Come on, you take the Germany's for the reasons. It's about economics.
Yes, but then people can layer onto that religion culture.
But the base is economics, right?
You're right.
I mean, in a land of plenty, I'm an atheist, right?
Right.
In a land of plenty, come on.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need religion. I mean, religion is the opium of the people. Not accept that. Come on. Right? In a land of plenty,
it's difficult to get people to kill each other over religion when there's enough to eat.
There's enough to eat. I mean, come on, I don't care.
That's
land
it.
of plenty, right?
So to reframe your social mission, there's not just the mission to earn in dollars and live in rupees. It's also to spread that model and to achieve shared wealth such that conflict is unimaginable. That would be the paraphrase. Your vision for the future, the roadmap.
I think we need entrepreneurs. Sri Lanka has the lowest entrepreneur in the whole percentage-wise. We have 1%. Vietnam is 14%. If you really look at,
and yet it's ranked. It's not ranked at the bottom, anywhere near the bottom. It's ranked near the top in terms of. I'm forgetting the metric, but
right? Yeah. It's why I said.
In terms of an environment, maybe where.
To get that phrase correctly, it's earning dollars, spending rupees is about how do you do. It's you export or perish, right?
Export or perish.
In a small economy, you've got to understand when you do not have critical mass.
That's right. You referred to Israel and Ireland as models,
and even Singapore.
And Singapore,
right? You need to come up with a unique, not a unique. I mean, these are things being done.
Yeah.
If you had a size of a Brazil or Argentina, India,
then you have an internal market that could create the demand that's needed to create wealth. If we got cut off in 2 minutes, would you allow me to run through rapid fire the 5 questions related to my subject, law? There's 5 questions I try to ask everybody. 1, what have you learned about contracts? Whether it's verbal, written, contracts when the legal system is slow, expensive, or unreliable, anything about contracts or negotiation. What have you learned about making contracts, negotiating deals? Anything under that you would share with the world?
I think for me, contract is a piece of paper which you refer to when your relationship breaks down.
I thought you might go there. Yeah, okay. But the relationship comes first.
Number 1, I can have a contract tightly written. If you have to ever refer to any elements of the contract, that is
something's wrong.
But you don't have the right supplier, or you don't have the right customer.
But would you say it's also useful to go through the exercise and ask, look, here are the ways I could fail. Here are the ways you could fail. Let's establish now the consequences if we don't deliver on time, so that we avoid conflict later.
Yeah, but
that's useful, right?
Yeah, but that is the basis of my relationship, right? This is what happened. This is your responsibility. This is my responsibility. Because you touch when you touch a contract, when you go to, this thing is when these boundaries are very unclear, right? But if you define, if I'm going to build this house, right, there is a definition. That is why in most of software contract, I mean, I love contract because I've gone through every contract. My wife is a lawyer, right? So I've gone
Condolences,
through, right?
is the appropriate joke
at
this moment.
No, I go through contract and I can force any lawyer in terms of legal, IT legal contract. He won't know where the landmines I have left and his client, you know, right throughout my life.
So they do matter.
Right?
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is always I think, look, you have to be reasonable here.
Yeah.
Right? Now see, in a software thing, we take it stage by stage, right? You would not, now see, I'm involved in building a hub. I mean, I would like to see the visualization to avoid
misunderstanding.
Right? So it's your process which will allow you to do that.
Okay.
Right? So I think it's as long as you understand the business. But if you're a cheat, then it's completely different, right? If you cheat or you try to hide behind the contract because you cannot deliver. So I think it's about trust.
Okay.
Right? And when you pick someone, when you pick an architect or constructions are the worst, right? More than anything. But I think it's how you understand the process. Because if you really understand any process you're going to contract, then it is very easy to put a process which is easy.
Last question.
That's the thing.
Last question on this topic, because we have the other big four, almost unavoidable business issues that have a legal aspect. Is it actually offensive to bring up the written contract, to build on what you just said? Should we be aware that when you work with a Sri Lankan, would they be offended if you refer to the contract and say, look, I'm sorry, but our contract says that this ought to happen. You've been a day late.
Of course.
People would be insulted. It's okay. They wouldn't be insulted.
Never.
Okay.
I mean, I think because that's a promise, right?
Right. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is broken when
No,
you refer to the contract, right?
But if all what I meant was, if I ever have to refer to a contract, that means you have not done your job. Either party has not done the job.
Right. And we need to go to what did we discuss are going to be the consequences.
Yeah.
Okay. Next big topic, business formation. Do you think business formation matters? Have you ever, is there a social enterprise form here of the kind that's beginning to appear in the world where the legal documents are different, where there's almost a disclaimer to investors, look, we might not maximize profit because, to take your company for example, you declare upfront to investors, we have a social mission. We will pay 10% more than the rest of the market. Does it help? Does it matter? When you're looking at a new company, or if I were your employee, I said, this great idea, we're gonna convert old tea plantations into these incredibly profitable wildlife viewing areas, and you said, have you ever advised them, well, you really need to think about your business form, and maybe you need to put a disclaimer to people that you're not going to maximize profit, but you're going to have a social mission. Does that matter? Do you think business formation?
I think, you see, when you select your investor.
Yeah, you select your investor. You should know their values.
Exactly.
But
if you select investors who are, so you have to be 100%. When you select it, no, for me, I will not sacrifice anything about the people, right?
And you make that clear to your investors.
Upfront, this is the way, this is our business model. These guys
have you told an investor, I will sometimes not make as much profit as I could because I'm making sure that the wealth gets shared with my employees? You've said that?
We have said, I think more and more, actually Adam, I think it is much better than 20 years ago, right?
Investors are more open to this.
Much more open, they're not there for this thing because we know finally it's about business sustainability. These are all very short term. It's not quarter driven. It's not the American way of quarter driven.
That is changing. You hear that changing.
Yes, it's changing. Because
Fantastic.
finally, it's about how do you sustain your business in the
Right.
long term.
Right.
That's why the new companies have to. You can't go on maximizing profit.
And exploiting as much as you can in the short term.
Can.
So business formation, last time I'll ask the question a slightly different way. Does business formation, the founding documents, any lessons learned? Have you ever seen a company that forms incorrectly and they should have formed maybe as a not-for-profit? Feel free to mention mistakes learned over 20 years.
I think mistake months because you fail to read the founders' passion
Okay.
and the ambition, right?
So understand their motivations
You have to understand them.
of the investors and the
Because
founder in both
finally,
directions.
Yeah, finally
Okay.
you're investing on the founder.
That's right.
You have to go to bed with him, understand, take time and understand him. What are his values?
What's driving him?
What is his driving?
The motivations, not
The
the.
motivation.
Yeah.
And he's a guy, if you're going to give him money and he's obsessed about Ferraris, he'll take the money and buy it, right? So you really have to understand what motivates him,
Yeah.
why is he doing it,
Yep.
and can he build a team around him?
Mm-hmm.
I think you invest on the person first.
Do we need to get that or last three? Rapid fire. Okay. Liability. What are the mistakes you've seen in terms of controlling for liability? Liability meaning the entire category of what can go wrong in a business where somebody gets hurt and somebody turns around and sues in court. What's the number one lesson learned?
I think
Is it to be paranoid and think of everything that can go wrong every day?
you can also working from home.
Okay.
Right.
That reduces liability exposure?
It increases your exposure.
How does it increase liability exposure?
Because you're still responsible because they're working from home.
And does
Something
that
happens.
The risk of liability is that they get hurt at home or they create a software error?
Yeah, no, but they can get hurt at home.
Huh. And you would be to blame?
Yeah, can be. Of course.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Topic for a law journal article. If my colleagues are watching, looking for research ideas, we could have lawsuits, have employment lawsuits alleging employer negligence gone up as a result of people working at home and getting
Yeah,
carpal
because
tunnel.
you have not
Provided for their
not
workplace
provided
safety.
them with the how do I say the standard of what should be there, your powers outage sockets.
Amazing. Okay. I have not thought of this, but that's a fascinating. So you do have part of your mind that is very optimistic and think of new opportunities, but you also do think about the downside out there. You do have some mindfulness of risk. What do you look for in a relationship with an attorney? Is that what you look for? Somebody who is the grandmother who's worried about everything? That's one stereotype I've heard. That look for in a lawyer, somebody whose full-time job is to be paranoid and think what can go wrong. Or is that a bad relationship? And do you want somebody who has a growth mindset?
No, you need two.
You need two.
You need the paranoid guy, and then you need the business guy.
Okay.
So you make the judgment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
Fascinating. Do you really have two lawyers? And they really have those two personalities?
Yeah, personality.
That's already, this is something I've not heard this. This is gold. I really hope you let me share some of this. Okay, and the last
You
one.
have to have that.
Oh my God, that's nobody's ever mentioned that.
You have to have the guy who's paranoid
And somebody who is also looking out for the growth potential.
Yeah, and
who says, no, look, there's some risk here, but man, look at the opportunity.
yeah, and he
Okay.
says you can handle it this way.
Here's how we control the risk.
So you're able to.
And
Because if you listen to a lawyer, then you will never take off.
contracts, business forms, liability, and the last two things are human resources issues. What have you learned about legal ramifications of human resources? This can cover anything, discrimination, anything. And the last one is intellectual property. And that should have been the one I start. But it's great to end with intellectual property because it's so core to what you do. Let's start with human resources. You've talked about it. You've talked about the need to recruit for people that are ambitious, that want to be CEOs, to nurture accountability. Anything to say, though, about all the legal aspects of human resources? What have you learned from mistakes made, either other people's or your own?
I think the most important thing about, you touched about IP and etc., perjury, looking at someone stealing
ideas that you've paid them to produce and then they run off.
Right. So I think that you need to have, I mean, thank God in Sri Lanka we know from the universities and etc. So we know by interviewing, going into, I don't know, it's discriminatory, go into a little bit of family, right? You look at who their friends are, you try to get reference, right? You try, because I'm sitting on
This is fascinating.
$2 to $3 billion worth of IP is residing at my
$2 to $3 billion of
intellectual
intellectual.
property. And my customers trust me
Yes.
because they come to with an idea, so you build this for me, or I have an idea already partly built. And for 20 years of business, I have not had one case of any of my stuff violating this. And how do we do this? We try to teach them ethics at a very beginning.
Okay.
Okay? Because
Training.
you have to teach them. So that is what is very important. You build. It's the culture you build, the values you build. And that is why I said leadership. It's not only me, I have a team of my senior management. We have to live and die by good values.
Live and die by good values.
Right? Because once you do that, because customers, they will trust you. Right? I mean, there's no, because I think, and when you go back, is it difficult for me to increase my price by 5%? When I'm able to do all this? Trust, they believe in me. Why would someone change the relationship? Have this value?
A question comes to mind that I didn't ask immediately. Do your clients know when they get into the relationship? Are you very open and tell them, look, I'm going to be increasing, my mission is to increase profit by 5% every year so that I can build wealth.
Yeah, but I don't phrase it like you. Right?
Okay, how do you phrase
I
it?
said, we want to increase, we want to be innovative, and we want to ensure, I want to increase the value of your IP.
The value of your IP.
IP.
And that will be reflected in our prices every year?
I don't need to talk about prices.
You don't talk about
my question is, I need to increase the value of your IP, right? So if I come to you and I say, okay, Adam, Mano, this relationship, today your company valuation is based at $10 million. Let's take this.
Okay.
Right? You're coming to a valuation. I said, we both have to agree by this relationship that I'll be so innovative. I'll find new ways that our goal is to increase your IP, your value of your company by 10. So that's why at the SME level, you really have a strategic thinking. What do you want this relationship? Is it to fire 5 guys and get 3 of my guys who are cheaper? Forget it, I don't want to do this business.
Yeah.
Right? I want.
Can you spot that early on in the relationship?
Sorry?
Can you spot that in somebody early in the relationship?
Yeah, because that'll be the USP. Because for them, they're given a lot of choices. I can go to Russia, I can go to China.
USB? That would be
the unique selling proposition. Right?
Unique selling proposition.
So you've got to say, look, I'm coming here, I'm going to increase. Of course, your cost is going to increase engaging me because I'm an outside guy. But we both, let's agree, what is the goal here? The goal is for you to, every enterprise wants their valuation going up and you want to do an exit. You've got to understand the mindset, right? And I'm going to go through that journey. And I'm going to, so
you
once,
focus on the creating of value.
So it's about outcome based.
Right.
When I have them, when we know the strategy is clear, it's about outcome based.
Stay focused on that vision.
The rest.
The rest they will tolerate as long as you're proving that you're creating value.
So I come to your house and I said, look, I'm going to transform your house. Your value of your house is $500,000.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm going to make it to $1 million, $500,000. Right? Would you really care that it is $200,000 or $250,000?
I get what you're saying. At that point, if you double the value, you don't care that the price might have gone up 20% over the year. You do. Fantastic. So you have to. So one of the things.
That's why you need tech guys to understand. A knowledge economy guy has to understand the business outcome.
Yep. That is outcome based. Yes.
You've got to constantly. It's not.
And you educate your people from day one, probably. That everything builds to this one goal. They have to see output at the end that increases the value of the company.
Of your customer.
And nurture that from the people are not just following orders. They know that is the vision that is guiding things. This is really valuable. Everything that you're sharing is fantastic. Maybe we should end on this. Oh, do we cover intellectual property? That seems to be wrapped up in your human resources. That ultimately intellectual property. So if I recall correctly, I mean a lot of what you work on or your people work on is software code.
Yeah.
So
and ideas of someone else's.
And so at some point, especially your paranoid lawyer, must fixate on how do you protect it within the context of this region of the world and Sri Lanka specifically. Is it protected through copyright or patent, trade secret, neither? What do you know?
Everything what we do to the client is theirs.
Oh wow.
No compromise. So he's 100%. If I sit with you and we are developing a software to make shoes, right? Just imagine, and you're a shoe manufacturer. I come up with this brilliant idea. How to bring your production life cycle by half.
Doesn't that sometimes kill you when you realize I just created this is an idea I'd love to have, but I have to give it away?
No, but then look at me commercializing this, and you think I will make it happen? Yeah,
it might not be your strength. It might not be your expertise.
It's not our strength.
So it could be a breakthrough innovation, but better for them to deploy and you to justify being their partner for another year. By the way, the length of your contracts, if it seems like you love these long-term relationships.
Long-term.
So like minimum length of your contract?
I mean, average customer is about 6 years.
Average is 6.
Yeah, because I'm part of the team, right?
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't go bankrupt, I'm fine. Yeah.
Fascinating. Any last things that you want to share with the world? In case I send you a copy of this, you review it or have your people review it and you say, you know what? I didn't say anything that's silly, or if you decide these are the few minutes that you can share, what would you share with the world, first of all, about Sri Lanka? Is this the time to invest? Everybody else that I've asked, what do you want to share with the world? They say, oh, visit, be a tourist. What would you say to the world about Sri Lanka? If you had one billboard that everybody saw, what would it say about Sri Lanka?
Come and experience paradise.
Come and experience paradise. As a tourist or as somebody with a relationship that invests?
No, I think it's a paradise.
It's paradise.
Right.
Any favorite regions, by the way?
For me, I love the hills.
Okay, because the temperature is cool.
It's beautiful. But I think, we should get tourists, because just imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a numbers man, so say, right?
Okay.
I mean, world has how much population?
Oh, we're approaching 8 billion, aren't we?
So let's say 10% travel.
10% travel? Okay. Maybe not intercontinental, but yeah.
10%. Come on, 10% of the world travels. So it's about 80 million people.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay. And what percent have visited Sri Lanka?
No. So, I mean, these are high-end guys. Right? I think more people travel, but I'm just taking 10% maybe.
Relative to the world population, to go over an ocean, you have to be, I think, in the top percentiles. I would guess. I don't know this for a fact.
But you take Europe. I think it's.
So the question is, do you want to go for the backpackers, the middle class,
no,
or?
But the backpackers are very important, because when you have a backpack, you also have to see the longevity, because the day he makes money, he will return back.
And they talk to their parents, and they talk to their friends that sometimes.
So, but I think Sri Lanka has this thing, it's paradise. Then you come, then you meet, and you say, oh wow, I like to buy some furniture from Sri Lanka, because it's unique. So I think tourism is the most important thing. But I think this is not a place where you're worried about every bush has a snake. Right.
No.
If
the most important thing is theft. I mean, people say there were some warnings, in the trains, watch your pockets, watch your backpacks. But what people told me ahead of time and what I experienced is I left things lying around almost as a test. And no issues. Okay, maybe no. Now I'm worried about that becoming public. In case somebody labels me naive.
I think you have to experience Sri Lanka. It is a paradise.
And the culture seems very honest and caring and
open
hospitable.
And smilable people.
Yeah. Yes.
And we are on a reset. And my only wish to fellow Sri Lankans is, let's not consume.
Yes.
Let's produce.
Yes.
And then if we go back to our indigenous way of doing things, I think we will be able to bridge this gap. Of course, it's a part of everything is a learning.
Yeah.
We can't have this type of politicians.
Yeah.
We have to be more accountable.
Yeah.
And that will come from the people.
And the last big life and or business lesson, as a family man, as somebody who's a leader.
I have 4 daughters.
4 daughters.
You've seen.
Congratulations.
Right.
I was one of 4 boys. The youngest one unfortunately died.
Oh.
But there's still 3 of us. Hi guys, if you ever watch this. What's your lesson as a family man now? Any grandkids yet, by the way?
Not yet.
Okay, well, good luck.
Yeah,
I hear it's a great experience. As a family man, as a businessman, as somebody who mentors young business people, what's your biggest life advice? What do you wish you knew when you were 20? What do you tell your daughters? Daughters, this was the time I wasted. These were the mistakes I made. What were your biggest regrets? Any regrets? Any mistakes? Biggest lessons that you wish you learned earlier?
To be honest, I share so much things with my daughters.
Yeah.
Right.
Transparency is good. You share the mistakes.
I share my life lessons, what I did in school, the good things and the bad things and the naughty things. And my biggest regret, our parents came from a very old school, where you didn't have that relationship with...
It was less friendship and more authority.
Yeah.
Power distance.
And I think that is the only thing I regret. Right. Okay?
You regret...
That our relationship with our parents were... Because I think...
That you didn't get to know them as people as much as authority figures. Do you take that into the workplace? Do you allow, here's something that I got criticized, well, not criticized, but I have colleagues that would never share on social media, them having, this is me doing a handstand on vacation somewhere. They still don't see any benefit to the showing the non-professional side of yourself. Do you ever act silly in front of your employees? Do you have office parties? Or do you respect a boundary that no, some things, do you know what I'm saying? Do you bring your whole self to work as how people are talking about it? Or do you tell your employees, no, I don't want to know what your personal life, what you do on vacation, there should be a wall. Where do you draw the line?
For me, I have no secrets.
Yeah.
So easy, right?
But
and I like my life. You know, I'm a Leo, so we are right. We are open. We are open, okay. Right? And there is no secrets. And I think for me, that is important, right? And okay, someone wants, and then I will not make a judgment if someone wants to be very personal, but I talk about myself, right? But one thing I don't want to do is talk, I mean, like your video, I don't want to, because this is personal to me, right? When I open my house and I have nothing, you know, I don't look at a guy and start suspecting him, right? You know, for me,
you don't suspect motives until they give you a reason.
Yeah, reason. So it's open, and I think what I have learned over the years, you know, being a father and mentoring a lot of young guys, I think the most important thing is to share every lesson what you have learned.